to talk all things fashion on this second installment of Fashion Fridays. Now, we in the previous episode, we unpacked so much on our thoughts, our personal thoughts and opinions about where fashion is currently sitting right now. Just in like the global, you called it fashion scape. I'm gonna say zeitgeist, isn't it? The
Okay.
fashion
I haven't heard that
zeitgeist.
word since college.
I've been hearing that word so much recently, and I'm like, I kind of like what it sounds like. I have not
Yeah.
done my research to figure out exactly what it means, but it
hmm
sounds right. It's just like the
I'm
fashion
gonna have to look it up
zeitgeist.
again. I forgot what it meant too. I remember talking about it in college all the time, but I forgot. Yeah, I forgot what it means
Yeah.
too.
Yeah. But I mean, yeah, we were unpacking that last week, and I think there was so much that we dissected about, particularly what I found interesting was where we saw the current state of fashion, not just
hmm
within the fashion industry, but fashion in general within society, and how that kind of art form of fashion and how the art of fashion has kind of disseminated. Oh, my earring just fell.
Huh,
We don't want that to happen.
what the heck?
So just kind of unpacking and understanding whether, the current state of fashion is right now. Have you had any reflections on that since our last conversation?
Um, Following off of that topic, yeah, there actually has been a couple of things coming up in public this
Yeah.
past week. So basically, there's a lot of controversy right now, which this has been an ongoing thing that's been kind of pushed under the rug, brought up to light, pushed under the rug again in different areas of the world.
Mm,
Um, but I think which makes this one so kind of not shocking because nothing shocks me anymore when it comes to this stuff, but more of like surprising in this region.
mm,
Um, so there's labor scandals in Italy. So
mm,
basically, Italy is trying to defend itself after these scandals have been popping up. You know, it's luxury's golden stamp is when something's made in Italy. It's like it automatically kind
sure.
of presumes the personality of like this is luxury, this is high end, this is well
Mm-hmm.
crafted. But sorry, I'm a little sniffly today. Um, but basically, they're under fire because there's investigations that have revealed major labels like Dior, Valentino, and one that's been going on, Laura Piana, has been
Mm,
using undocumented labor earning as low as like $4 an hour. So Italy's government is launching a new certification program to protect the prestige of the Made in Italy label. It's pretty much damage control on their part, and a push for transparency, I guess, for the situation instead of them just like sitting back and be like, "Oh, we don't know what you're talking about."
mm,
Um, but basically, I guess the key discussion in that realm is made in Italy still mean craftsmanship? Does it still have that heritage identity, or has it become like a marketing illusion? After all this is coming
mm.
out, it's like, does it really still carry that weight of high end luxury quality, or is this just show that it's more sweeping under the rug and they're just taking advantage of that label and being able to kind of get work done for cheap? That's
Mm.
the big question that presides from that.
So basically, yeah. So basically, what then the conversation is, or rather the story is that we've seen this similarly to other countries where there's been reports of either child labor, I believe in China, or
Yeah.
in this case, it's below minimum wage, salaries or wage that people are receiving in
Mhm.
Italy for the work of craftsmanship. I'm glad it's not child labor like the other parts of the world, or
Mhm.
I guess that's still to be found out as well, if it
Yeah, they're
is to the
still
extent of
still
child
digging
labor.
into it. Yeah, they're still digging into it for sure, but they have investigated and noticed that it has been undocumented laborers that are working as little as $4 an hour. So yeah, nothing's out if there's child labor going on, which, like I said, nothing surprises me nowadays. So wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah.
But I'll definitely be keeping up more with that and kind of seeing how that plays out.
I think there definitely is. I mean, the fashion industry is such a we touch base on this a little bit. It's all about the idea of perception, all about the idea of psychology, all about the
Yeah.
idea of, putting together this idea that will then sell, right? And I
Mhm.
when something is has that made in Italy logo or label, you think of the prestige, you think of it being luxury, and perhaps not just because of the fact that it's a fashion label, but because that's what that country, particularly perhaps for the longest time, has invested in, right? I've
Mhm.
seen documentaries across different brands that have spoken about, when it comes to, there's so many factories, for an example, that you'd find in those types of countries, that the label of craftsmanship comes because there has been an investment over a century or decades rather of craftsmanship being embedded within just the fabric of the country or the fabric of the people. And
Culture.
I've yeah, and it's part of the culture, and it's part of that, there are countries and cities that are known for certain things, like, oh, this city is known for its coffee, or this city is known for its leather, or this city is known for,
Mhm.
there's so many things. And when I think of Italy, it is about the fact that, from just stuff that I've watched, that there's generations and generations of people who would say that, oh, my grandmother used to be a pattern maker, or my grandmother used to be,
Yeah.
had a factory that they did had leather goods and sold leather goods.
Mhm.
And then the globalization of that then meant it becoming luxury, because now, the rest of the world wanted a bit of that good. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
I read a book. It was an old book that I was given by a very senior lady, right? And she was like, "Oh, grab this book," and I had no idea what the book was about. And this book spoke about how color, even color itself, was a prestige within fashion back in the days, like in the 1800s or something like that.
Oh
That if
yeah.
you
Yeah.
had,
Victorian
if
Games.
you yeah, and there were parts of the world where, certain people, only certain people wear a certain color. And so when I
Mhm.
think about this conversation, and I think of Italy, and I think about the fact that that's where the idea of craftsmanship was really looked into. And
Mhm.
then fashion made it a thing where those people were perhaps generally just creating good quality clothes or good quality bags or whatever the case may be. Then fashion got a hold of that. And that then became this, okay, we need to produce multiple, we need to produce hundreds and hundreds and thousands. And that then died down to making it now, we need to produce at a faster rate. What can we
Mhm.
do to make that happen? You know what I mean? And then it
Yeah.
died then down to such practices. So I've kind of been really interested in understanding what each region really specializes in, and I think Italy is one of those. But again, it's important to understand and be cognizant of the fact that there are certain things that shouldn't be happening, and that the fashion industry has been riding on for a very long time. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And
Yeah.
and and those things need to change.
I agree, and it's sad that that's where it's gotten because I feel like you know back then when these first big fashion houses were really coming to light, like your Chanel, your Christian Dior's,
Hearing
they
focus.
were they were so focused on craftsmanship. It wasn't about just
Yes.
and even the founders of these big houses, that is what was important to them was craftsmanship
Mm.
and elegance and luxury. I mean, for example, sneak peek for our next coming issue we have coming up for our magazine. I have an article about um God, what's his name? I'm not gonna give you the name because it's gonna. I don't want to like give anything away, but basically, he was basically the guy who pretty much started couture and like the couture wear and like it was Victorian times and basically how it became a political thing and like it became a thing for aristocrats and high end society. It's because the craftsmanship was unique. It was basically unaffordable for anything under
Yeah.
the high end of
The
the high end.
royals.
The royals. And
Yes.
that's what fashion was. Back then
Mm.
it was really for the esteemed and well made and took a lot longer of a process to make. But that was kind of what the art of it was and why it was so fascinating. It was really detail focused. And now, as we've gotten further and further along with technology as well and all that, it's become just about mass producing and producing as
Yeah.
much as you can and branding and trying to just sell you. And I think, like we talked about last time, I think people are realizing that now, and I think people are trying to kind of get away from that, and buy, you know, from brands that are doing it more kind of that old school way when they're like it's more slow, it's more about craftsmanship, it's not really about producing as much as you can, but it's about limited runs and well-made craft. So I'm seeing a little bit more of that. But with the high end, very big houses, I just don't see. I think it's too far gone for them. So that really kind of makes things confusing in the whole landscape of fashion.
Hmm.
Uh, but yeah, it has me very curious of where it's going to lead, especially when it comes to tech, because tech tied in with like sustainability and all that. As fashion, we're consumers, right? Especially in America, we're always going to want to consume, and especially in today's world, I think we're so far gone of the past and how things were. There's really no such thing as consuming less anymore. Like we're going to continue to want to consume more and more and more because we have access to more and more and more. Um, and tech is going to really make that interesting, I think, in the facts of like manufacturing. I feel like sustainability is going to be handled more in the technology aspects of new things coming out to kind of help in the manufacturing process. I think us as consumers though we're always going to buy more and more and more. So I really don't know where it's going to go in the future for that.
Yeah. I think there's only I mean there's been a preservation of certain parts of the world that have tried to maintain that China obviously has been the one that has been known for these types of practices, etc.
Yeah,
And now we are
definitely.
starting to come to light now that the European landscape as well. We also know
Mm-hmm.
India has also had a lot of reports on that.
Oh yeah,
And
Bangladesh.
India being,
Well,
yeah, the Middle East, and I mean, they are a big producer, and India has been a great producer of really quality clothing, right?
oh
But
for
we've
sure,
come in,
almost as long
yeah,
as anybody. China and
yeah,
India. I mean, you had all the way back to the Silk Road, the
yep,
trading route it would take. I
mm-hmm,
mean, their textiles were immaculate, and they
yeah.
still are. But
Yeah.
yeah,
But we've been seeing the reports come out, right? And now Europe is kind of being implicated because Europe was always seen as like, oh, Europe is the creme de la creme. Like they're not gonna nothing will ever happen of that capacity in Europe,
yeah,
you know. Um,
hmm
America has never I've never necessarily known America to be a producer of fashion or a maker of fashion or producer of who are American. The rest of the world still kind of has this mindset that they are European brands or would associate them with the European kind of landscape of brands. Um, but there's like I think Southern America and Africa have been the only two parts of the world right now that haven't necessarily been part of the conversation of fashion from a producing standpoint. And they are the only two that haven't necessarily had the pressures of having to have mass production as even a conversation, right? Because only a few can necessarily even afford the high prestige of which is what fashion really encapsulates, when or true real fashion or um luxury fashion really encapsulates that inaffordability or inaccessibility, or the fact that not everyone can get this particular item or the craftsmanship behind it.
hmm
So those two parts have been the only ones that I've seen or I've kind of been watching to be still preservers of that. And I think
yeah,
perhaps the US as well. I think that yeah, the US could also be one that hasn't necessarily fallen into the trap of the exploitative practices that we've seen now coming into light. And all the luxury brands have been, I mean, we saw what happened when the tariffs came and China exposed all the luxury brands who are saying made in Europe, but are actually made in
yeah,
China.
all made in China. And the
And it's
thing with
all made in
America is,
China.
100%. And I think with America, I think we have the reason why we haven't seen as much like as much exploitation for like child labor and stuff like that is because we already had the laws in place. And I think that we are a little bit more strenuous on those kind of laws. But also, we just don't have as much manufacturing jobs as we used to.
Mm.
We look back at like the American Revolution. We made everything that we needed here in our country, but over time we started, branching out to countries like China and other countries for cheaper product, to make things cheaper, and it's kind of just become a permanent thing where it's like there's no coming back from. But it's pretty much killed the manufacturing industry in America, which is very
Yeah.
unfortunate because you know when people buy vintage, a lot of people look to buy made in the USA because back in the day, when things were made here in America, they were made with a lot of pride and heritage and well made, kind of that, like we talked about the craftsmanship. But it's sad that we've kind of lost that because it's gone so far towards mass producing and just getting the cheapest manufacturing you can get, to where that wasn't realistic here in America. So we had to source out to China and other
Mm.
countries, and now it's just so far gone that I think personally it's almost nearly impossible to bring all that manufacturing back to the US. It's If we do, it's going to take a long time. um there's a few places here in New York, but it's a high premium cost. And I just feel like if you're a small brand starting up, you really don't have that luxury of having that as an option, which is
Yeah.
unfortunate. Yeah.
Of making it in the US. And yeah, I mean, so that then I think really then, asks the question of like who is fashion? Like where is fashion from,
Mm-hmm.
Is fashion from China? And by fashion I mean the industry, because where something
I
is
think
made is where it's from.
fast fashion industry is 100% pretty much. I mean, you look at Shein and I mean, if you look at Zara, even, I mean, I look at Zara as like a little bit higher above H&M. I mean, you look at H&M, fast fashion, Sheen, fast fashion, Zara, still fast fashion, and they're Spanish. I mean, it's a Spanish brand. Um, so it's a global thing. It really is. It's
Yeah.
worldwide, and it depends on what your market is, what you're selling. But apparently, there's always going to be something you can get cheaper done somewhere.
Yeah. The only brand that I've seen that has been maintaining, or maybe two brands, or I've watched documentaries of who have maintained the art of craftsmanship, has been Hermes as well as Chanel.
Yeah.
That I've seen, like watched how they actually make the
Yeah.
stuff. And again, it's documentaries. You just don't know if that's just for the
But
media,
it's
but
fabricated. Yeah, definitely.
that
But
that's and but with what happened with China coming out and those factories coming forward to say all of these luxury brands that you guys think they're made in Europe, they're not. They're made here. So now
mm,
that makes me ask the question like, okay, so fashion is then made in China,
yeah, and
you know?
there's loopholes where it can be labeled made in if the process is finished in that country,
Assembled. Mm,
assembled. So if you do everything in China or India, wherever, and it's all, or Sri Lanka, everything's made and all that, but the last stitch is put back in Italy, then you can technically say it's made in Italy. So it's just, there's so many loopholes in the industry that play with the consumer's mind that it really, that's where it's like you got to really do your own research and dive in to really know who you trust as a consumer, because at the end of the day, these big brands, they're trying to I hate to use the word manipulate, but it's true, they're trying to manipulate you to become a cult follower of their brand and what they're selling, through marketing strategies,
yeah.
through special deals, and it's all false marketing, at the end of the day, which is
It's a
that's why you
psychology thing.
yeah, it's why it is. It's all psychology.
It's
That's why you
all
got to be.
psychology because at the
Mm-hmm.
end of the day, I saw a brand that I had, been following and is just incredible. They, put into factor things like sustainability and things like craftsmanship, etc. And I've seen the brand. and I saw that they had a partnership with Shein.
Yeah, yeah,
And
she.
what I'm yeah, so by that meaning that they are now having their clothing accessible and seen on Shein for people to then be able to still access the people who are on those platforms to still be able to access the good quality clothing as well.
Hmm.
And so I'm asking myself the question, okay, so that's some sort of middle ground to then to some extent because the practice of people shopping online is now the next step, and that's what those platforms have not necessarily been able to push fast fashion forward, but have been able to push fashion forward, the industry forward, by
Hmm.
changing how we shop fashion, right?
Hmm.
um and a big part of the brands that now are starting to find ways and loopholes to catching up and to being part of the conversation, because at the end of the day it is about making sales, right? It is about
Yeah, yeah.
ensuring that your products are being bought. So now this kind of like intertwining, and we're going to see a lot more of that coming forward as well, with the now, stores being closed, physical stores closing down and all of that happening. We're going to start seeing an intertwining now of the what was there before and how that is then weaved into what people are currently buying now. We're going to start seeing a rise of pricing, for an example, on these platforms, which were historically known for being a lot more cheaper, etc., etc. But we're going to start seeing a rise of that now happening because it's now become the norm, right? Something when it's being introduced to the market, things are extremely and um, heavily affordable so that people can adapt to the behavior. But we're going to start seeing now things going up a little bit more. And with the idea of sustainability being now enforced within laws and not just being something spoken about, that certain countries are enforcing laws for that to be part of the production process, that will increase how things are made. And that will then further increase how things are sold because then the pricing will go up. So it's all of these kind of ecosystem considerations that we have to kind of put into fact, because those brands in Italy that are now using cheap labor, when they can't use cheap labor anymore, they're going to have to start using actual labor. That will cut down on their profits and their cost, and then they'll have to increase the pricing
And they
to
get
still
greedy. Yeah.
maintain their profits, and that will have a ripple effect on everything else. So it's kind of just like, yeah, as we are speaking now, all of that is going on in my head to say, okay, this
Hmm.
is this is the future of fashion. This is where we're going, right? And how do we then ensure that we are aware of that? You
Hmm.
mentioned robots are coming into the play. So we're gonna have robots making fashion now. We're gonna have robots making clothes.
Which
And
makes
if
you
you're
wonder.
speaking,
What makes you wonder is like, you say things will be put into place to where they're going to have to start paying workers a livable wage. Like
yeah,
you're paying undocumented people child labor or giving them pennies on the dollar. So it's like, will they get to this point where they're paying people a livable wage? Or is it going to get to the point where it's a sewing machine. They're creating automatic sewing machines. It's going to get to the point where they don't even have employees.
yeah,
So they're not paying employees. So logically,
mm-hmm,
you're like, okay, that'll make them be able to, drive the cost down.
mm-hmm,
But are they really going to sell things for cheaper? And probably not.
yeah,
That's the problem.
no,
That's the
no, no,
problem where
no, the
user.
price never goes down.
Yeah,
All the
it
way
never
up
goes
it
down.
goes.
Yeah, and they'll probably put a spin on it. Oh, well, it's made by robots, so that's even
Mm-hmm.
more significant. So we're going to charge you even
Mm-hmm.
more. But
Yeah.
in
And
reality,
make
that's
and they'll make different variations of the robot. So if your robot is Model 6 that made the product, it's like, okay, now you have
yeah.
to pay
They'll
more.
tell it on the tag. It's
Made by Robot X6. But
yeah,
again,
it
it's like that's where
blows
the
my mind.
world is going. I
It
saw a
is.
video.
There's no stopping it either.
No, I saw a video of a one of the founder of, well, not the CEO of Nvidia, and he was talking about the
Yeah.
computing machinery that they're making right now, and how they're training robots to not just to think and act like human beings, and the video that they showed within that interview was a video of a robot in a warehouse, in a factory,
Yeah.
not a factory, but a warehouse where they store stuff, and things are picked up to be delivered, etc. And
Mhm.
that's what they're training the robots towards. And, thinking
Yeah.
of places like Amazon, for an example, that have
Amazon's
already
doing this.
started implementing that, right?
Mhm.
Within their delivery warehouses, where there's
Yeah.
robots packing and, or rather like stamping the items to be then taken down the scroll to then be put into the truck. And the
Mhm.
only thing a human's doing is now driving the stuff. But now Elon Musk is building self-driving cars and all the other guys.
Yeah.
So we don't even need
Eventually,
people
that'll be a
driving
problem.
cars anymore.
Yeah, eventually that's going to be something that takes a while. I feel like just an infrastructure issue long term, but eventually, yeah, I'm sure down the road they're going to have automatic driving and everything with
Yeah,
semi trucks and everything. So that
yeah.
is
So
unfortunate, but it's like how do
that's
we
where
adapt?
fashions go.
Yeah,
Yeah,
fashion, not even just fashion, everything. But one more thing on fashion and sustainability is like
yeah,
I've said this example before, but basically it goes back to like the sustainability and like the what's the word I'm looking for? Like what people consider is what is right and wrong. For example, like PETA, like people against what is it? I don't even know the what it stands for, but it's basically the the animal lovers group or whatever.
mm,
So it's like they've been causing an uproar for the last couple years in fashion for using real leathers, for using fur, and it's
fair.
like the fashion industry is like kind of caved into that and be like, oh well, we're using. I think it was Fendi. They're like, oh, we're not using real fur anymore. We're gonna use faux fur, but it's like big brands are using it as an excuse to basically cut out the cost of using real leather, real fur, real animal products, real hides, and to cheapen out by using plastics and fake furs and all that, fake leathers, and basically make the just amount of same profit of it as using the real thing, but they're using it as an excuse of, oh, we're being
Sustainable.
sustainable, but in reality that's just the excuse for them to cheapen the cost and sell for the price. So I hate that fact, but there is a lot of brands that are against that and still using real fur and real leather, which I think is so crucial because if you want something that's going to last a long time, you need real leather that will last you a lifetime if you take care of it.
Mm,
And it ties into sustainability and fast fashion. It's like you have a leather jacket that you can hand down, and it ages well and it gets a patina to it over the years. Then it looks better than it did when we first bought it, and it's 40 years old. I
mm.
leather the price never goes down on good leather. It always
Yeah.
it always maintains.
You just never know what people really. Again, it's a double entranda, right? That's the word. Double entranda, where it's like
I know
it's
what you're trying
both.
to say, but I don't know if that's the right word or not.
What's with the English is disappearing today. I don't know what's going on,
Yeah, I'm
but
stumbling over myself too. It's just one of
but
those
it's
days.
like yeah, it's a double-edged sword where it's like
Yeah.
whether you are doing it this way, whether you're doing that way, you're just never gonna win. Like you're just never gonna have it perfectly right.
Mm.
And so even as like people who are, in getting into this industry or in this industry, it's just, I think it was just a matter of picking a side and just sticking to that and kind of holding fort to that, and the type of people that are then following and supporting that will just come through.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, because I feel like it's just you're never gonna get on the right side of the stake because there'll be someone who's saying that's wrong. You're like, okay, let's make good quality, leather. And then someone's gonna say, oh, but the good quality leather is not sustainable. And then someone else is gonna say, oh, but that's too expensive. And then someone else is gonna say, oh, but it's good because it has to be expensive for it. You know what I mean? It's like an investment. So
It's
there's
always
so
gonna be
many
bad.
things. Yeah, yeah. And I think that's what makes fashion, again, back to our conversation last week, that's what makes it individualistic in the sense that
Very opinion.
your opinion
Hmm.
is what it is to you. And that's
And that's
okay.
what I love about it because it's like your opinion as a designer. At the end of the day, yes, you have to sell your products. You have to sell. You have to bring in a certain amount of money to stay afloat. But at the end of the day, you have that freedom, unlike anything else, where at the end of the day, you can make what you truly want to make, and you will always find your tribe with that. You'll always have people that love it, and you'll always have people that hate it. But at the end of the day,
Yeah.
you can really make what you love, and you will always find people that want to buy it,
Yeah.
that agree with your message. So I think that's the freedom that comes with fashion too. It's like you can truly do what you want, how you want to do it, and I think that's what kind of draws me to it, because I'm kind of like a person that is like, I don't know, I like being able to do things how I love to see it, or how I do it, how I view it, and people supporting that even kind of like motivates you even more to keep doing, because it's like, okay, so what I'm doing is working, so I
Yeah.
think it attracts the right crowd for your type of consumer.
Yeah. There's been this debate about Fashion Week. It's coming up, so kind of thought we should kind of put it
You're
in there.
thinking the
And
same thing, and I wonder if you're thinking the same thing I'm thinking. Yeah, what are your thoughts on it?
well, I mean, I found something that kind of sparked a debate online about
Was it
just the
Michael Kors?
idea or the relevance. Yes, the Michael
Yeah,
Kors interview.
yeah.
But just
I
firstly, kind of those are two parts, because the first part being the relevancy of of Fashion Week, not just New York,
mhm.
and then the relevancy or the importance of showing in your
In your
locally as well
home
or
country. Yeah,
nationally.
yeah.
Mhm. But yeah, let me hear what you have to say, because it sounded like you
I
had.
briefly saw what he said. I mean, I totally agree. If you look at the statistics and the numbers of success, participants, really every statistical number in New York Fashion Week compared to others, it is completely dying pretty much. You don't have a lot of the big name designers showing here anymore, because they're so focused on showing at Paris Fashion Week,
Yeah,
or even London Fashion Week used to
Milan.
be below.
Yeah.
London Fashion Week was like lowest, and now it's surpassing New York. And New York's kind of coming down to the lowest successful fashion week, because no one wants to come here, no one wants to show here. They want all show in Milan and Paris, and I wonder why that is. I don't know. I have some speculations, but I think for Paris specifically, I think everybody globally just sees it as the mecca of fashion. So I think these small brands and bigger brands, I think everybody just prioritizes showing there, because it's just where they're going to get the most respect and the most media coverage, I guess. But I do agree that it's like all these American brands that have never shown before. They show their first collection at Paris Fashion Week and not New York Fashion Week down the street. And I'm like, that's kind of crazy. But then again, it makes sense, because it is dying here. It's not the same as it used to be. Um, and it's just, I feel like it's kind of losing its credibility here.
Mm.
It's very unfortunate, but that's what it seems like it's going. Yeah.
I think um I have a lot to say about this, because I'm just like, there is, as I said, there were two ways that kind of looked at it. The
Hmm.
first being the relevancy of not even just New York Fashion Week, but the relevancy of Fashion Week in general.
Yeah.
Um, I, remember a time where even the Paris and the other fashion weeks, where when there was Fashion Week, literally everybody and anybody was going to know about that. Like
Yeah.
it was hot topic. It was like
Hmm.
everybody is going to know. Um, and I feel like with and I said this in the beginning of like top of this episode, I was like, I feel like there's very few brands that are from an American standpoint. Like when you think about which brands are American brands, because with what you're saying, a lot of the brands would go to Paris, and then the association or the thought process is, oh, it's one of the European brands, it's one of the luxury brands in Europe. And again, with a lot of things from Europe being put in the bracket of luxury, American brands that want to be associated with luxury would then go to
Yeah.
Europe to kind of
Exactly.
present or set up their foundation. And then when coming back to New York, it's like, oh, but they have a store in Paris, or they have, like, they've shown in Paris. So
Hmm.
now we can take credibility to them and give them that kind of type of respect in New York. But there's a lot of brands that I feel like have, and I think that conversation was reference to that as well, that there are so many beautifully American created brands that are currently necessarily trying to globalize to the extent where they're losing their American essence. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Mhm.
Because yes, it's incredible to show at Paris, and yeah, globalization is a big thing. You know, that's the and it's people outside of your country. If you're doing things outside of your country, by the time you come back into your country, there will be a certain perceived idea of your brand. We
Yeah.
recognize that. Um, but also I think with New York Fashion Week, there has been a dying down, and at least from what I've seen, is that there's also always something else that's going on in New York around New York
That is
Fashion
true.
Week.
Yeah. Yeah.
If it's not the Super Bowl, it's the MTV Awards, and the because the celebrities are the ones that made Fashion Week, because like, oh, who sat
Hmm.
in the front row? Oh, it was this actress and that director sat. But now in the influencing world, anyone and everyone can just go to Fashion Week. And that I
Yeah.
think that's what the die where not everyone can go to Paris.
Hmm.
Not everyone can jump on a flight and go to Paris Fashion Week or you know or Milan. The
Yeah. Yeah.
accessibility of that is a little bit further down than what you'd be able to find in New York. So I think that also maybe plays a role into that. But I think there's a lot more that needs to be done to bring back the credibility of New York Fashion Week because,
I also
yeah,
I think Willie Chavaria had an interview recently. I need to go watch it again. But this conversation is making me remember it. He basically said, and I think he speaks for a lot of people in the industry when he mentioned this, is showing at Fashion Week. It's not what it used to be.
in
Um,
general. Hmm.
in general, just all the
Yeah.
way around, brands lose money doing it. They don't gain money.
Mm-mm.
Um, and it's all about perception. Every seat, he was basically saying that every seat for the show has an impact.
Yeah.
So it's like you want to make sure this editor or marketer sits here. You got to make sure this person with a certain role sits here, because you have to really strategically go about it. You can't just have all these people that love the fashion come and see it. That's not how it works. You get all these people with strong voices that
Hmm.
will reach a broad crowd to say something publicly about your brand. You want them to be the
Yeah.
ones seeing it. You want these editors to see it. You want these people that run magazines, these media companies. It's not even about the
A
clothes anymore.
celebrity. Yeah.
Yeah, the celebrities, the
It's a
influencers.
marketing. It was a
It's all
marketing
marketing.
tool before.
Yeah, it
Hmm.
is. Yeah, and it's like it's not what it used to be. It's not for the actual love of the clothes anymore. It's all a perception thing. And like we said a second ago, it's like that's where the whole industry's kind of going. So like in a world where fashion is so loud, there's so much noise. It's overwhelming, honestly, at a time when I'm researching and doing stuff, looking into like fashion news and what's going on right now. I get kind of like overwhelmed because I'm like, it's the same stuff. It's toxic stuff. It's stuff that I haven't. It's nothing new. It's like stuff I've heard before. It's like it's just become so overwhelmingly crowded and loud, where like I feel like I just need to get away from it. And that's where I feel like for me, it's so important for these smaller brands to not jump on that train and follow what all these big brands are doing because they think it's going to get them to that standard. I think it's best to go a different route. I think it's best to be something unique, and everybody tries to be unique and different, but they end up all following the same strategy. They all do the
Mm.
same thing on social media. They all post the same thing. There needs to be something done differently because now it's just becoming a lot of noise, and the industry is very overcrowded. Everybody wants to be a fashion designer now, and it's just kind of
The
exhausting
20
in a
the
way.
21-year-old who you spoke
It
about
makes
that
me sad.
21-year-old
Yeah.
last week.
Yeah, I mean, like when I
um
remember when I first was in school for fashion, when I remember telling people that I was like a fashion designer, they would be like, "Oh, okay, like what shirts do you make?" And I'm like, they automatically have that presumption now that like people are labeling themselves as a fashion designer for just making
yeah.
graphic T-shirts. And I'm
Hmm.
like, you're not. That's not a to me in my eyes. That's not a fashion designer. A fashion designer who's somebody who can visualize a garment or a product, be innovative about it, draft a pattern, drape. There's a certain skill set that comes behind being labeled a fashion designer. And I almost hate calling myself a fashion designer now because I feel like that's what people automatically assume. They're like, oh, okay, you can make t-shirts or you can make a graphic tee or something. I'm like, and there's so many people I see online that have pretty big followings that do that. It blows my mind. I'm like, okay, I respect you're doing that and you're doing your thing and you're finding success for it. But I just feel like it's not fair to label yourself as a fashion designer if that's all you do. I don't know. That can be a controversial topic, but I just don't. I feel like it's a craft that you really have to deserve the respect to be called a
Yeah.
fashion designer. So
I
I don't
think
know.
it also is for whoever is willing to take it on. I think like it's in the sense that like this in the sense that the people who are coming into the forefront and are calling themselves designers or have the following for the people that are buying their clothing, for an example, um, and they're taking the opportunity and they're utilizing their
The platform.
their platform to monetize and to make more money and to
Yeah.
be a
Yeah.
little bit more successful. I'm not even shaming those people, you know what I mean? Because I'm also just
Mm-hmm.
like, we are also in a generation where a lot of people who have the craft of fashion design or who have the art are having the expectation of things happening not in the way that they've always happened in the history of time, where things take
Yeah. Oh
time,
yeah.
kind of, you know what I mean? Where things develop and good things take time. And with the
Mm-hmm.
brands that we see today, they've taken hundreds and like some of them 1925 was the time it was started. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. Big
so
houses. Yeah.
in the big houses, and so what's happening now with the people who have the craft is this expectation of it being like a Chanel the week after or the month after. And that's something that's,
Yep.
I think, is going to kill the industry. And then we'll start. I mean, people need the clothes. People want to buy clothes. So
Mm-hmm.
the people who are brave enough to then say, and those types of brands are not brands that are looking to be around for 100 years. They just want
Yeah.
to use their platforms, sell the t-shirts, and make money
Make
today.
money and make money.
They're not
That's
trying to
pretty much
make brands that are gonna like live the longest. You know what I mean? So
live after they've gone. Yeah. Yeah.
yes, so the folks who are really interested and invested, and we can look through history, all of the brands, all of the people that we can say have successful brands today, they've all followed the same through line. But because of the expectation of today, where it's like the folks with the talent are not, pouring into themselves or trusting themselves enough to say, hey, I'm gonna do it and it's gonna take time to get there.
Mm-hmm.
And and that's unfortunate because the older folks are kind of dying away. Now we are looking for the new generation of fashion designers and everyone's looking sideways and everyone's like, where is the new crop of like designers who are getting into the industry with the intention of building brands that are going to last a lifetime,
Yeah. Yeah.
that are well made, and it's a shame to see, but I think there's so much more that we can, and this is across the board in the creative industry. There's just not that many there's just, yeah, I think the social media era and the digital era has really dimmed down the arts of certain things. And that's why I certainly do believe that even though there's a rise of technology and a rise of digital everything, there are certain things that have worked and are going to continue working and are going to,
Mm-hmm.
even if they're made or are shaped differently. It's like when people say that radio is dying, I was like, no, radio is never going to die, because that's what
Mm-hmm.
podcasting is. We just name it a different name. But
You
essentially, the
reframe.
art form, yeah, the art form of broadcasting, that's not going anywhere. The art form
Mm-hmm.
of television, that's not going anywhere. And so the reshaping of something or the reshaping of a craft is not it being disseminated. But from the fashion standpoint, the introduction of t-shirts and the dying down of like made clothes is for me the worry, to say, what is the reshaping of that looks like? What is the reinvention of fashion look like from this new generation, the Gen Zs, the Gen Alphas? What will then fashion look like? What will legacy house building look like for that generation?
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know, and so yeah, we'll just that's just a mouthful, but that's just where I see it, and that's how I've kind of thought about it for a long time to say, where are we going? And what's that going to look like? And even for example, back to like what we were saying last week, having a publication that for me, the you said earlier on that they were like editors that were invited to these fashion shows so that the preservations of those brands could go beyond just being a tweet, right? And that's
Yeah.
what
Who was in that?
a physical publication is, that right? We are able,
Mhm.
if we can go back to a Vogue 1998, you'll be able to understand fully and presently what fashion was in that moment, because we have in book, it's in a book, it's something physical.
Yeah.
You know what
Yeah.
I mean? But if it was just another scroll, it
You scroll
was
by it and
just
forget it.
and forget about it. And
Mm.
so I am kind of solely, I'm just like, we need to bring back those art forms in the way that made them work
Yeah.
then.
It's funny you say that because it makes me think. It's like these real printed publications and stuff that are printed and written down that you can refer back to, and you see like social media and stuff, and just this thing, the way we scroll through things today, and that the how much stuff we consume in a day. I saw a guy. He was basically saying he's like, you'll spend, you'll look at like your screen time, and it'll be like you spend 4 hours a day on your phone. When you wake up the next day, can you name 5 things that you even remember from those 4 hours you scrolled through? And I'm like, that's kind of crazy because I'll remember like 2 things. And it's like you're really spending all that time just scrolling, and then most of that information just goes in one ear out the other. You just totally, you see it for a second, it's amazing, and then it wipes from your memory. And when it's
Yeah.
more physical and stuff, you can always refer back to it. There's more of that nostalgia because you can always look back on it, and it'll always be there.
And
Um,
I think that's what brands need to do to connect back to that, because
mhm,
that is what will make them kind of continue holding on to the preservation of that art form, because it
yeah.
made sense because of that infrastructure, that ecosystem around it. um if you're going to be inviting influencers to your show that are going to take 30-second videos that are going to be on the 24-hour story that's going to disappear in 24 hours, that's not
Hmm.
preservation. We will forget about your show, we will forget about your
Yeah.
clothes.
Yeah.
You know what I
Hmm.
mean? Whereas
Yeah.
if you're, for an example, inviting an editor, and I'm not like trying to say that invite us because we are editors, no. I'm
Huh.
saying this because because just generally, like, just think about, like, if you were to invite an editor, for example, of a publication that's gonna reach 100,000 homes, for an example, those people will see that consistently and continuously over time. And that'll be an
Yeah.
investment to your brand that is far beyond a social media scroll. And I'm not
Hmm.
saying that one is better than the other, but I'm saying the the remembrance of that is important as well, to be like, why did that work? It worked
Yeah.
because of X. So what if
Hmm.
we were to then consider that right now as well? Um and we must also dissect the difference between the dying of a particular type of archetype of a publication and the dying of publication in general. And those are two
Yeah.
different things. We've
They are.
seen a dying of a particular archetype of a publication, but
Hmm.
not the art form itself, because that's never going to die,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. I agree. I really agree with that.
Yeah.
Mhm. And
But
for example, there's a brand. Uh, there's a brand. Well, they're still named. They're named All In is the brand name, and they're actually a finalist for the LVMH prize. And they
mm,
started off, I think, I want to say 10 years ago as a magazine, as a publication. And they became throughout the years a brand and like started producing fashion, and they're rebranding to August Barron, their new name, which is like it's a mix of their 2 names. It's 2 guys, and they're showing at Paris Fashion Week, Paris, not New York,
of
and
course.
they're announcing their rollout of their new name there as like a strategic move. And I just think that's a cool example. Is there a final for LVMH prize, which is one of the most, it pretty
Coveted.
much is the most coveted like award for new upcoming designers, and they
Yeah.
started as a publication. That was they did. They were upcycle kind of editorial magazine, and they built something out of it. Like really built a foundation with the magazine, and they built off that. And now they're structuring into something more powerful and more, permanent and more physical. So
Yeah.
I think that's a cool transition that they did that, and that they're finding the success that they're finding.
And I'm sure they understand things about, from a marketing standpoint, that will be crucially
100%.
essential to marketing their
100.
brand, and how do you get, because that's the question that a lot of people have been asking. And I kind of thought to myself, even us having to have the conversation about having brands featured, and there have been brands that have been very responsive to like working with us for the magazine, right? And
Yeah.
you've also would find brands that are just like, well, we don't want to be on your magazine because you guys don't have 1 million followers. And you're just like,
Yeah.
okay,
I mean, it
okay,
makes
cool.
I see it from their view. I get it, but it's like at the end of the day, it's like we got to have a couple of those people take the leap of faith and work with us to get to that
Yeah,
point. So
yeah.
and when we get to that point, those people will realize, and then we'll make sure not to work with them.
I
So
guess, I guess. But I think the point that the point that I was making, I think with that was the fact that like the idea of even 1 million followers is the idea of the
success.
digital idea of success. The idea of printing something, having something
Oh yeah.
printed, whether it's a book, that in and of itself is a measure of success to me.
Hmm.
It's like the fact that there's something that has been put together and created and done and printed, and it's in circulation. That to me signifies and indicates something that is has been a successful project. And so, having to find, and again, I also get it, like having to find a struggle, to struggling rather to find brands that, for an example, we are looking to incorporate brands on our ecom platform, for example. And the same, some of the brands that, the reach out has gone to are some of the brands who are on social media, speaking loudly and proudly about the difficulty of getting onto certain platforms, or the difficulty of reaching certain customers. And then there are platforms that are coming to say, we are looking to support you with that. And the reception is a little bit different. So
Hmm.
again, because fashion is a psychological thing, it's like it's either that or it's nothing. But it's also a good thing for those brands, because they understand their value, right? And understand
Yeah.
that they have to be in those particular platforms. um but I find it very fascinating for the same exact people that would perhaps ignore us would then speak about why a certain magazine or certain e-commerce platform is not listing or featuring their products. And it's like, but there are platforms that are featuring your products. It's just not the ones that you want or the ones that you're looking for.
Hmm.
And so I guess then the disconnect is within that as well, within the industry, that we all trying to go into this one bottleneck platform or bottleneck magazine, that if people are not, if you're not getting there, then that's the end of it. And
Then you feel like you haven't made it or you're not
yeah,
successful. Yeah.
and that's a lot of
But
people. A
that's
lot of
not.
people give up from at that point as well, to say, "Oh, I didn't get the feature, or I didn't get the from X,
Yeah.
so that's
I
it.
think
I'm not
I think
successful."
it's a good goal to have. Like to have certain, you want to be on certain platforms and make that a goal, but I don't think that should be make or break detrimental of what you define as success. I think success it comes from a lot broader of a perspective throughout the whole journey, and just the destination is not necessarily the success. It's what you've built as a whole. So I feel like people can get pretty sidetracked by that. But it is important to realize like you can set your goals. Sometimes you don't reach your goals when you think you're going to reach your goals, and sometimes your goals don't necessarily hit, but your perception can change and realize at the end of the day that your goal changes.
Mm,
And I think people need to realize that and be open to that because not just in the fashion industry where this is very prevalent, but you have to be adaptable. Adaptable is the
Yeah.
key, I think. One of the keys to success in any venture, especially as like an entrepreneur, you have to be adaptable. You have to
Yeah.
be able to work with what you've been given, and you have to be able to work not knowing what the outcome is going to be, but just put in the work anyway. And I think that's a very important skill to have.
Yeah.
And I'll let that
And I think
be.
to all the Gen Z, Gen X, anything after that, millennial,
Yeah, whatever.
to
ABC,
those
YZ.
those that are feeling like they just have not, they don't have space in the industry. I think there are some of us out here who are doing the work to create platforms and spaces for you to still exist in this industry.
Mm-hmm.
And this, I mean, I am shamelessly plugging Manhattan Avenue, but I'm just doing that because of just the context of this conversation, that they, not wanting to find brands saying that this industry is not for them, or that their work is not appreciated, or that they work is not good enough, maybe, or there are platforms. We are here, we are out here doing the foundational work to ensure that you have a space and a place to be able to have your work seen and your work consumed and your work appreciated. It's also just a matter of us, just coming together. And that's what they did back in the days. That's what, you'd find a Marc Jacobs being friends with Anna Wintour. Is it Marc Jacobs who was a guest editor for Vogue, who has a
Yeah,
brand and he's friends with Anna Wintour? You have to
yeah,
ask
yeah.
yourself, how did they? It didn't just happen now. It's something that probably was a long invested
No, a long time.
relationship. Yeah.
He's a lot of stuff. He started at Perry Ellis, and he got fired from Perry Ellis after his first collection, and that redirection became that. That's what I think is fascinating about Marc Jacobs' story. Is he started at Perry Ellis, menswear brand, very, very, very well known. Um, his collection that he made for him was not perceived well by the higher ups at Perry Ellis. So they fired him, and after that, he ended up getting attention because it wasn't. They fired him because they didn't feel like it fit the brand aesthetic, but it was a success. But it just didn't fit Perry Ellis. So Perry Ellis felt like they needed to move on, and because of that, he ended up getting the first ever creative director job at Louis Vuitton.
Oh, Marc
So,
Jacobs
and
was at
that's
Louis
what,
Vuitton.
yeah,
I
that's
didn't
what
know
it
that.
jump started his career. He was the first creative director at Louis Vuitton's ready to wear line, and after that he became the Marc Jacobs we all know because of that failure. I'm not even gonna say failure; it wasn't a failure, but it was redirection. And I
Yeah.
think that's a key. Everybody, don't take something as failure; take it as redirection. That's something I even struggle with right now. I I can dwell on things that aren't going the way I want them to, but in reality, that's not how things work. You got to take
Mm.
that redirection and adapt, redirection and adapt, and
Yeah.
you'll find what's meant to be.
I think that's what's missing right now as well within the fashion zeitgeist. It's the
Mm.
story element, right? Like if you look at people like Marc Jacobs, and you learn about their journey and how interesting and impactful and exciting and how challenging the journey has been. And I just generally feel that there isn't enough of the storytelling element, and it doesn't even have to be the idea of, oh hey, let me build in public, but just the intertwining of the story within the brand in and of itself. That when I'm wearing the brand, I am buying into this person's like
Their
story. Like
world.
when you wear a Marc Jacobs product, you're wearing someone who got fired, and now he got back on again. And that's how you feel when you're wearing it's not just about the clothes, you know what I mean? So
Yeah, yeah,
I generally think that our generation has also then have confused storytelling and content. And
yeah.
those are, I
100.
feel, are two different
And
things.
it's overcrowded too. It's everybody's trying to storytell, but it's directionless.
Yeah,
They're
it's just
creating stories
content.
instead of living stories.
Exactly. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
That perfectly summed up. Creating stories
Mm-hmm.
and creating content, and not really having. I said this to someone the other day. I was, he was telling me, and this is like a sidetrack, but it's just in context of this. It was telling me about, you know, he has this incredible business and he's looking to do this, and that, and he wants nothing to go wrong. Nothing to go wrong. Everything must go
Yeah. Not,
perfectly right. And I asked him this. I was like, if I was watching your movie, where would the arc be? Where would the
mm,
I'm holding on to my dear chair part of your story be? If
where
everything
the
is meant
pivot
to
point
be,
be? Yeah, the
where would the
climax.
pivot point? Yeah, where would the climax be? Because this movie that you're telling me, I would not want to. It's just too boring. It's just too
It's
okay.
fake.
Like you got it. Okay, fantastic. You have it figured out.
Yeah.
You've
Yeah.
read all of Elon Musk's books. You've studied all of the, you've watched all of Jeff Bezos' interviews. But
Yeah.
where's the like now you know the what to do, what not to do. No, 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 no. But I don't want to watch that movie. You know what I mean? So
No.
I think that's
Mm,
if you're looking at it that way and kind of yes, let's create content. Yes, content is amazing. Yes, content is
hmm.
important because we are in that time right now. But sometimes I do wonder if we were to then write a movie about the journey, what would that look like? Because also what we are showing on social media, the content is even some of it could be, yeah, it's authentic, it's raw, but it's still performative because it's curated.
Yeah.
You still
Yeah.
need to put a camera there. You still need to put a
Exactly.
lighting on. It's curated. All of the chaos is curated as well. So we're not necessarily seeing the actual living of it. We're seeing the
100%.
performance of it
Hmm.
via content. And so I think that's what we just generally have right now, missing. That's why even I think the idea of wanting to have a physical printed thing, because it allows for storytelling to be a little bit more expansive than just
Yeah.
you know, because now the words have a lot more meaning and the words have a lot more power because they've been printed, they've been written down. But I think that's where the disconnect also comes with brands today, because it's like, okay, cool, you got this amazing production quality of content, but will this content be a story in 5, 10, 15, 20
Mm,
years? Will there even be
yeah.
Instagram in that time? Will you even have a feed?
Exactly. Exactly. We don't know. That's very true. Yeah.
We don't know that. MySpace
Hmm.
was there. It doesn't exist anymore. So many platforms were
Very
there.
true.
Mixit was there. It doesn't exist anymore. We don't know if we're gonna have
That's
Instagram in 20 years.
that's what's very interesting about all this whole conversation is because everybody's going like I 100% agree. Content is like the key of like building your brand's growth nowadays. I 100% agree with that. But you have to have your foot in different aspects or different routes because, like you said, like MySpace doesn't even exist anymore. What happens if tomorrow all social media was wiped off the face of the earth?
Oh, we would
If
have
you
a lot of.
built your if you built your brand solely on social media and that's it, then you don't have
Yeah.
a brand.
Mm-mm.
You don't have a following. You have to
Mm.
expand in other scales because you have to be like, if social media is gone, am I still there? For Ralph Lauren, for example, social media dies. Do they die? No, they're
No.
still here.
Chanel?
That people
No.
are going to know them. They're still going to be pushing all these the brands that have built outside of social media and have built before social media. They're going to still be here. But
Yeah,
a lot of these
that's
brands
true.
solely through social media, and when if it's gone, that's all you. That's all you put your. You put all your what do you call it? All your eggs in one
Eggs in one
basket.
basket. Mm.
Yeah, you gotta diversify. It's the same with your investment portfolio. Diversify. You gotta have a little bit. So
Yeah.
it's important to grow in other aspects, and that is why I do like because if social media dies, we'll still have the publication. We'll still be able to produce in that way. So I think that's such a
Yeah.
crucial aspect. People have to be prepared for something like that, even if it's never going to happen. You got to always be prepared.
Yeah. Wow, that is something that yeah, I think and just yeah, think of it as like what is the movie gonna look like? I think a lot
Mm,
of we're gonna see, I mean, we've been seeing a surgence of brands that are popping up, like especially with what you're saying, like fashion brands, day in the life with me starting, and then you see someone show us the mood board and show us like,
yeah,
oh, this
yeah,
is cool, this is cool, this is cool. And it's always for me, it's always like I'm this is beautiful. And we can never discount that. The beautiful people are making beautiful things out there.
yeah,
But sometimes the beautiful is not enough to kind of create something sustainable and something, long term. You'd find brands like Ralph Lauren and Polo. Some of these brands make the most basic clothing items. They
Mm-hmm.
make a pair of, Levi's makes a pair of jeans. Some of these
Yep.
brands make the most basic living, like I need to wear this every day type of things. Um, but it's just how they've been able to curate, storytell. Every collection is a story. There's a story behind it. Every single, thing has a curated story around it, and that's what's missing today. And I think if
Exactly.
brands could get that part. And I mean, I'm a storyteller, so yes, I'm going to be obsessed about the storytelling element of everything, and storytelling in its authentic core, and not just content, because again, it's two
Yeah.
different things. Storytelling and content are two completely different things.
Yeah. Yeah.
um so if we are going to start seeing a lot more of that, and also it done being in a very authentic way, and not
Mm-hmm.
I just hate performative stuff. I just don't like things being performative.
People don't relate to that. People can't relate to the performative stuff that's all perfect and crisp because that's not how life is. They relate
And
to
it's
the
not
things that oh,
sustainable.
it's
Yeah,
not. Well, yeah.
it's not sustainable. So we'll see. I'm excited. I'm on the lookout for brands. I've been like looking out, and obviously because we want to feature a lot of brands on Manhattan Avenue on our ecom platform, and also do features and write-ups, and on our magazine. So fashion brands that are out there watching, listening, hearing this, come to our avenue, because we are looking forward to even helping shape and curate and help tell the story, and not even tell, because we can't tell the story for you, but help be part of the storytelling
Use it as a platform.
process.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's very, very, very important. I think maybe that's our thing. That's what Manhattan Avenue, um is that space for that as well, is to ensure that we preserve the concept of storytelling within the world of fashion. That has been a dying art in and of itself as well, because everything has been like quick, 30-second, 15-second, let's go, let's go, let's go, next
Or,
video,
or
next video.
forced storytelling.
Make a video every day. Like there was this video that was trending. It's just a quick side note. We have to wrap up soon, but I know you
Yeah.
probably have one more story for me. But there was a side note of this lady saying, you have to look after the dog, you have to wash your laundry, you have to go to your job, you have to call your girlfriend, you have to tell your mom you love her, there's all, you have to create content, you have to post once a day, you have to post 3 times stories a day. And she was mentioning all the things. You have to feed your dog, you have to take your dog to the park, you have to come back, you have to gym, you have to exercise, you have to drink your water, you have to cook, you have to meal prep, you have to do your ironing, you have to watch Love Island,
Mm-hmm. Love
you have
Island.
to
Yeah.
go on social media. There's just like so many things that you have to do as this generation. It's insane. Like I think
It
people's
is.
minds are about to just burst out from
It is.
the amount
Yeah.
of insanity
Mm,
that's all around us. But and that probably even falls into the fashion industry as well. It's just like overconsumption, overstimulation, and we need to kind of
overstimulated.
go back to this the simplification of things. Just
Yeah.
let's simplify things a little bit. But yeah,
100%.
what else do you have for me, Nate, today?
I think that's it right now. I actually am about to have a package delivered, so I gotta get ready for that. But I think I'm good on my end. I think that's all I got right now.
All right. Well, yeah, I had that Michael Kors story. I think that was something that I was like, we definitely need to talk about this. New York Fashion
I
Week is
actually had
coming up.
an episode that yeah.
Hmm?
I actually
What's
had
that?
that. I had that story saved for our for episode last week that we didn't get to because we were like
Oh,
established written
yeah,
down.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
I'm glad we
yeah.
covered that.
No, for sure, for sure. New York Fashion Week is coming up in 2 weeks, I believe. Yeah, in 2 weeks. And things leading up to that, obviously, not just in this conversation, but also in what's to come, from Manhattan Avenue as well. So just be on the lookout for that. And yeah, thank you so much for watching, guys. We want to hear from you on the comments. I'm so excited to see these conversations like blow up on socials and just blow up on in the cultural zeitgeist, because I think that's going to happen in its time. We spoke about the idea of building, and I think about that of just like building things and making the foundation of things so solid to the degree that when they are then starting to grow, there's a foundational structure that has been put in place. So I'm not even worried or intimidated by, the numbers or whatever that we have right now, because I know where these conversations are going, where Manhattan Avenue is going. So to everyone watching,
And it's
thank you for
all,
being part. What's that?
I said it's all going to take time. We all
Yeah.
should. And nothing happens overnight, so it's
And
something
if
that we're
it
just
does,
always.
if
If
it
it
does,
does,
you need
yeah,
to give it a side eye.
yeah, be like thumbs up. Yeah.
But thank you guys so much for being part of our community. You are tuned into the Vuyo Show. We invite you to come along to our avenue. It's called Manhattan Avenue, where we are a fashion and lifestyle platform. We have a magazine, we have an e-commerce platform, and that's where we are doing all things fashion and lifestyle. So go on over there onto the avenue and go check it out on social media, manhattan.avenue on Instagram and TikTok. And what else do we have? We have all the social media platforms.
Yeah.
But follow up the journey as well over there. And this, of course, is the Vuyo Show. This coming out on Friday. Every single Friday, we're going to dish you Fashion Friday. So you are in for a fantastic treat. From myself, Vuyo, and Nate, the mate. It is goodbye and have a fantastic Friday further with lots of love. Cheers from New York City.